شلاملخ مريم مليف طيبوثة نارا عماخ مريخات المشي وموريخ بيت خرسريشو ناط مريم يلدت آلها صلح لا بين حطاهي هاشا وشاق الموثن آمين.
Okay, my name is Father George Muttathuparambil from India, from the state of Kerala. I am a Salesian of Don Bosco. I belong to the province of Bangalore, which consists of both Kerala and Karnataka, two states in India. It is on the southern part of India. In the province, we have got nearly 340 Salesians, fathers, brothers, clerics. And we have got different kinds of activities in the province, mainly for the street children, wherein we look after, we care for these unfortunate children. Then we have got missions in the rural areas through our parishes, through our boardings. We try to impart education and development to them. We have got technical education, we have schools, colleges. So in this way we try to impart the education of Don Bosco, especially to the poor and abandoned youth. I had the privilege of being in Yemen for 6 years. I went along with Father Tom in 2016 to Yemen. I volunteered myself to go to Yemen when our superiors asked for volunteers. And so I myself volunteered and went. And indeed, it was a very good experience. Although Yemen mission is something different than other mission areas, because of the situation in Yemen, we are practically all alone. We are not supposed to evangelize. We are not supposed to convert, speak anything about Christian religion. We have to be satisfied with little works that we do for the people who have come from outside working in Yemen. For example, Christians from Kerala, from India, Philippines, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, like that. Then, of course, we are the chaplains of Mother Teresa sisters. For me, the most difficult thing was the life of isolation, loneliness, because we cannot be meeting our parishioners during daytime. Once we finish our Mass in the morning for the sisters, then practically we are all alone. And we were 4 priests in 4 different centers in Yemen, far from each other. So that was the initial difficulty that I had faced in Yemen. Nothing much to do, but at the same time, our presence was required. Especially for the sisters. They could not imagine even one day without Holy Eucharist. So in that way, our help was indeed a very encouraging help for the sisters there. In the province, I was working mostly as an administrator. And of course, 2 years I was sent to Rome for taking licentiate in theology. Then again, I continued to be administrator, working in the novitiate, in the aspirandate and so on. So I thought about missions to have another experience, and therefore I volunteered. Besides, not many were opting for the missions, particularly for Yemen, which was all knew that it was not so easy. Well, when we went in 2010, everything was perfect, so to say. There was tight security. We could move about even at midnight anywhere. There was no problem because security was so tight. Then came the Arab Revolution or Arab Spring in 2011, then onwards the security situation was becoming worse and worse. Then all these unwanted elements who were kept under suppression, so to say, they began coming up here and there, and they were causing problems. Then slowly the civil war, because of which we could not travel freely. Often we were met with rejection, could not proceed, were sent back, or even vehicles were broken down, or things were not available to go. So a lot of difficulties there were. Slowly it increased. Then once the civil war reached its peak in 2014 onwards, it was utter confusion. It was so difficult to move about. And by the time out of 4 priests, 3 had gone back to India along with others by the end of 2014. By 2015, in the beginning I was alone. There was a severe war, land fight also going on in Aden. And therefore, I was not allowed to enter into Aden. I couldn't go. So I used to go to the other 3 places, spending more or less 10 days each. But often traveling was difficult. At times, vehicles breaking down. At times, I was sent back. At the security checkpoint, they will not allow you to proceed. Things like that, a lot of obstructions on our journey. When we want to travel, we are not able to go. But still, I kept on doing like that. Even after Father Tom came back, he went to Aden and he was stuck up there. And I was managing the other 3 areas. In my heart of hearts, of course, I was scared. But then, since the other priests, they were much younger than me. One had come just 6 months before, another one maybe 1 year like that. So they preferred to go back. And then I said, if I also go back, sisters will have nobody. And for them it was very, very important to have the spiritual help. And I felt really happy afterwards for the decision that I chose to remain back. Because during those 3-4 months of a severe war in Aden, before Father Tom came back, I could not go there, but I usually used to call the superior, Sister Sally, and speak. Invariably, every time, she used to break down crying. Why? Not because of there was no food, no water, no electricity, no other convenience, every now and then shells falling into the compound and so on. That was not the problem. She was telling, Father, we have no sacraments. We can't make confessions. No mass. In this case, at any moment, we may go mad. Saying this, she used to cry. So at least I thought, since I remained back, I could visit at least the other 3 communities and do whatever I can. So I feel really happy that I stayed back. But finally I had to come out because I had already booked my ticket by the 30th of March 2017 to come back. Not 2016 to come back. Because after 2 months my passport would be expired. Therefore I need to get back and renew the passport, and then only I can come back. So because of that, I had already reserved my ticket to go back on the 30th. Meanwhile, on the 4th of March, that unfortunate event took place in Aden. So they took Father Tom away. Sister Sally was saved, and then the dead bodies of the sisters were buried. And on the 30th, with great difficulty, I reached the capital, Sanaa, and they would not allow me to come out to go to board the plane. Only at the last half an hour, they gave me the permission to go. Anyway, with the prayers of everyone, I went back to Bangalore. Once I reached back, the provincial and team said, now you need not go back. wait until the security situation is more or less okay. Meanwhile, I renewed my passport. I was supposed to come back after 1.5 months, but then provincial told me to remain in the provincial house, and I am still there waiting for the situations to become better. But war is still going on, especially in 2 cities where the sisters are there. We do not know when it would end, how it would end, but we hope one day things will come back to normalcy. Well, it was on the 4th of March around 11:15 that Sister Sally called me, informing me such a thing happened. Then she told me to inform their Mother General in Calcutta, to the Bishop and to our provincial. Since it was a time of war, there was no electricity. The signals of the mobile was very weak. At times there won't be any signal at all. Somehow I managed to communicate the message to the outside world. It was indeed a shock. I could not believe, because till then there was no such problem, attacks against us personally. Of course, by the time they had already destroyed, the terrorist groups had already destroyed the 3 churches. In the cathedral church, they had destroyed everything inside. At Mala church, they planted bomb and bursted. The 3rd church at Creta, all within the city of Aden, they burned. But then Christians were as such not attacked. So we were not expecting any of these things would happen. So it was indeed a shock. Then until sister was isolated in the military barrack, until then I could communicate with her. And it was her desire before she flew out of the country to bury the body of the sisters. But it didn't happen. We had to wait 5 days. Then only because of the help of one doctor, she went down to Aden from Sana, and she managed to speak with the different groups, finally get permission to bury their bodies. At least that way they had a decent burial, at least that way. Their bodies were not prepared, because the lady was given just 2 hours to bring the body from the mortuary and bury. Even before the burial was over, already shootout had already begun. So it was such a situation there. Of course, it is I knew people were praying, because people knew that we were in a difficult situation. Most of the Indians and others have gone back to their own places. And so we trusted in prayer. That gave us courage. Much more than that, also the courage and the strength of the sisters. They said whatever happens, they would not abandon their patients and go away. I could run away from one place to another. In fact, once I ran away with a serious threat. Somehow I escaped that. But then sisters were still there. I could run away. So I was strengthened by the faith of these sisters themselves. I could really just admire them. Well, there was one occasion, as I said, I could escape from that place. That was Thais, that was my parish. Of course, once the war began, we couldn't stay in the parish. The distance was too much to the convent. From my place, from the parish, the convent was 12 kilometers away. So once the war started, for convenience, I was staying with the sisters in the old age home. My church was attacked by the terrorists, and they took over on the 15th of August in 2015. Just 2 days before, I had visited the church last time. Then one of my Muslim friend who was next door neighbor, he told me, Father, two Al-Qaeda people came. They cut the throats of two people. Then on the 15th of August, they took over the church. They burned everything. I also lost all my personal belongings except the things that I were carrying all around. They occupied the area. After 2 days, I found 3 missed calls from my friend just in the morning before the Mass as I was getting ready. Then immediately I got another call from a strange number. I attended it. Then I could hear only someone mourning as if being strangled or as if the throat is being cut. I really got frightened. I knew they had caught my friend and his sister and his mother, and from them they would come to know about me, where I was staying, and I was sure they would come after me. I was really down, really frightened. Somehow, without telling the sisters, I finished the Mass. Soon after the Mass, I just collapsed on the chair. Then only I told the sisters somehow. Meanwhile, I had already called the driver, told him I want to go away from here immediately, come as fast as possible. But he said, Father, when there is shootings going on, they will not allow you to pass through the checkpoints. So he was 25 kilometers away. I told him, somehow you must come, I must escape from here. And I just sat there praying, shivering, sweating, and I had no life. I couldn't even move from the chair. I was just praying, Lord, I want to escape. Save me. This was my only prayer. And there was no way of escaping from there, because once you go out, you will be shot either from the right or from the left, from either party. And you cannot run away like that. The shooting has to stop a little bit, then only we'll be able to go. So I was sitting and praying and sweating and crying, lifeless, Lord, I want to escape, I want to escape. Time passed by. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I called the driver again somehow. He said, Father, still not able to come. They are not allowing, because shooting was going on from both sides. And sister's place was more or less in the middle. So from both sides, they were shooting. 11 o'clock, I called again. He said, no, can't come. Then I knew that was my end. They would come at any moment. All this time I was seeing my own body in front without head. So at 11 o'clock when I called him and said, when he said he can't come, I said, finished. I cannot escape. Then I changed my prayer. Lord, if it is your will that I must die here, let it be so. The moment I said that, my reactions changed. Sweating stopped. I could breathe. I could talk. I could get up and move around. Although I was still frightened, still I could move around and talk with the sisters. Anyway, thanks be to God. At around 12 o'clock, the shooting reduced a little bit. The driver crossed 5 checkpoints. He came. As soon as he came, I went with him, went out to a taxi stand, then went to the next parish, Hodeidah, which was 260 kilometers away. All this while I was still frightened, looking out for people with long beard, because they could come from anywhere. Anyway, at night we reached Hodeidah. Tried to sleep there, but I couldn't sleep at all, not even one moment. Next day early morning, we took the bus. He accompanied me to the Sana'a, the capital. Only after reaching the capital, I could breathe normally, so to say. Later on, after I made sure that things were okay in Thais, I went back. But then in March 12th, the terrorist groups, they took over also the area of the sisters. But thanks be to God, just one day before, They had sent a bus from capital. They put all the patients inside, the workers, sisters, and they were taken to the capital. The very next night, these terrorist groups ran over that area. They occupied that place. So that was God's way of saving the sisters in Thais. There is nothing to forgive. I was afraid because my faith was not strong like Father Tom's. Because of that, I was scared, of course. I tried to escape because of that, otherwise I would have remained with the sisters there. So I tried to escape. Well, judgment belongs to God, not to us. Therefore, I have nothing against anybody. Well, along with our provincial, vice provincial, I too had gone to Delhi to receive him. But then when we reached Delhi, we could not meet him because there were so many people, press people, ministers, to receive him and take him. So we could see him only much later. But then it was a miracle, so to say. Even when we got the news first, we were all almost given up hope like that. Although we were praying continuously, when we heard suddenly Tom is released, we couldn't believe. It was indeed a miracle of God. Even though I had opted to go to Yemen, I feel happy. Although many people questioned, why do you waste your time in a place where there is no possibility of conversion, where there are not enough people? You can go to some faraway mission lands, you can convert and baptize many people. Here, not even a possibility of saying one word about Jesus. But then we were like lights shining in darkness. I say this because when the war was beginning, local people they were moving to villages. And while going, they came to sisters and asked, "Are you not moving away from here?" Sisters said, "No, we will stay with them. You will be killed. No problem. We will stay with our people." Then they responded, "That means your faith is stronger than our faith. Your God is better than our God." For a Muslim to say like that, it is not. Almost impossible. But then the sincere life, the sacrificing life of the sisters, it had effects on the lives of people. And so much so, most of the people appreciated the sisters, their hard work. Although they did not like the sisters as such, but their service, they appreciated very much. So we were like small lights shining in dark place, spreading light to them. So even though we were able to do only little, we are happy that at least that we could do.